detention centers where many suffer ill health and have no access to proper treatment. Humanitarian groups and the United Nations have criticized the camps, saying migrants suffer arbitrary detention, forced labor, rape and torture. This year's edition of the World Economic Forum has been flagged off in Durban today with the theme Achieving Inclusive Growth Through Responsible and Responsive Leadership. A number of serving and former African leaders are attending, including Zimbabwe's President Robert Mugabe. Host President Jacob Zuma of South Africa and WEF founder Klaus Schwab opened the event with speeches touching on how leaders can deliver prosperity to all. Our South Africa Bureau Chief, Betty Dibia, tells us more.
There are a number of sitting and former heads of government from Africa among the more than 1,000 delegates from over 100 countries gathered here to talk about boosting inclusive growth through responsible and responsive leadership in Africa. Many meetings and panel discussions have already been taking place ahead of this opening ceremony, and the founder of the WEF, Professor Klaus Schwab, raised issues on preparedness for the fourth industrial revolution, addressing youth unemployment and what he calls the crisis of leadership on the continent.
Of course, we all know about the potential of Africa, but it needs more. It needs trust in the soundness of the institutional system. It needs trust in democracy. And democracy means not only elections, it means also accountability.
President Jacob Zuma of South Africa admitted to some of the failings on the continent and suggested some ways the situation can be salvaged.
One of the most important actions that are critical for Africa is sourcing finance, is to arrest illicit financial flows. Another radical step that we must take as African countries is to diversify our economies away from dependence on commodities so that they become less vulnerable to commodity shocks.
In your understanding? Answering questions from young participants, President Zuma said youths must not only be heard, but be more engaged in governance, like he says he's done in his now controversial cabinet reshuffle. Some of the social entrepreneurs were honored for the difference they're making in various African countries. The meetings continue, but we asked some of the participants why they do not consider this another futile talk session.
That we should be here discussing how to ensure that Africa's growth is inclusive is extremely important.
I would like to say get everybody involved, because the issue of the continent is that wealth, power has been trapped by a little group of people. So we all feel desperate.
The African president should understand and embrace that. Young people are coming forward. Embrace them. Tap into their aspiration.
The forum ends on Friday, the 5th of May. From the Albert Luthuli International Convention Center, Durban, Betty Dibia, Channels Television News.
Meanwhile, South Africa's Finance Minister Malusi Gigaba has been answering questions on the state of the nation's economy following the recent junk status rating by Fitch and Standard & Poor's, as well as the unfolding political situation in the country. Speaking with Channels Television at the World Economic Forum on Africa, Mr. Gigaba says that South Africa's case is not isolated and that the nation remains a great place to invest.
Look, we are concerned about the level of political polarization in our society. But the risks that exist in South Africa are virtually the same as those that exist in other parts of the world. The Brexit, for example, created risks and uncertainty about the direction that Britain was going to take. The British government is working very hard to communicate a message that they were not being influenced by narrow nationalistic sentiments, and that they are going to retreat from international trade and become more protectionist. The US elections created uncertainty. The elections in Europe have also created uncertainty about the rise of nationalist political movements that threaten international trade and are more protectionist in terms of their policies. So in South Africa, the risks that you see are an outcome of the democratic process. They do not mean that there will be a change of government. They do not mean that there will be a change in our policies in terms of international trade. The ANC holds 62% of the vote in the National Assembly. There is no chance in hell that that vote of no confidence is going to succeed. In actual fact, there have been so many votes of no confidence since 2009. And none of them has been successful. There is absolutely no chance in hell that this vote of no confidence is going to succeed.
Let's get more on this story and the WEF meeting from our South Africa Bureau Chief, Betty Dibia. You're welcome to the program. Right, there have been fears that the South African economy is on a downward trend, especially with the sacking of former finance minister. Can the new man in charge of South Africa's finance ministry convince investors that the economy is stable?
You just heard the finance minister now, the current finance minister, sounding quite defiant, and he's trying to let people know, and if anyone has finance minister, he's been at over tens of meetings, trying to let people know that they have actually moved on beyond that cabinet reshuffle that people believe to be controversial. And he cited political developments in other countries, like the UK, the US, the election of President Trump, the Brexit issue, and that people have to look beyond what has happened in the country, but they're fighting hard to retain or improve the trust that the people have, in the economy. They have infrastructure. He set out a lot of plus things or positive things that people should look at to know that they're making effort to ensure that it's democratically effective.
It's the second day of the summit, and part of the discussion centers on electrifying Africa. What are the participants saying is the way forward to Africa's power problems?
Well, we've heard so many things that we've heard so many times before. But you heard that Ghana had the Senegalese president, Macky Sall. It also had a Nigerian, one of the top officials of Sahara Group, the Tony Cole, and a number of other people from some other parts of the world, the panelists. The basic thing they were talking about is the issue of having advanced and futuristic policies, more innovative ways of delivering quality power to the people. The issue of partnerships, public-private sector, intra-regional, intergovernmental partnerships, and partnerships with multilateral bodies. Also, they talked about the viable projects that cost less in order to achieve industrialization on the continent. Particularly, Mr. Toyenko says that Africa needs every type of solution, not just one particular, not just like solar, every other type, and that there must be a strategic plan to tie all the efforts together in order to make a difference. Partnership, a body or a plan that involves government, private sector, regulators, and civil society as well. So those are the things. But some people I spoke with after that said, look, their plans, like you have the West African Power Project, you have the African Development Bank, the issue of the Power Africa Project. No one is talking about things that have been promised before. But, people need to go beyond talking and doing things regarding this situation.
Right, thank you so much for your time on the program. Our South Africa Bureau Chief, Betty Dibia, speaking to us there. Still to come on Network Africa. In spite of getting their communities back, the UN warns that millions still face hunger in territories recaptured by the Nigerian army from Boko Haram militants. That's in a moment.